as you can see, my topic is quite direct, very simple. What is the impact of this US-China trade war on research? By research, I actually means management research. Okay. Before I start, I want to show you a picture. See. That was me. That was me in 1976, so that's what? More than 40 years ago. I was 19, okay. All the Chinese probably know what happened in that year. In 76, great leader, Chairman Mao died. And when he died, the whole country has to organize a memorial service for him on the same day. Chinese all know that in funeral service, you cannot use colored picture. And back then, there was no black and white picture of Mao. So I was an artist. I was an artist in the Chinese army. It's an interesting story. They recruit people to the army to do artwork. You know, Mao closed all the schools during the Cultural Revolution, but he kept art flourishing because he needs art to praise him. So I was ordered to paint his picture, black and white, in one day. So I did it in 24 hours. Well, painting Mao wasn't so difficult because as an artist, my job was pretty much painting his portrait. So I can pretty much paint his portrait with my eyes closed. After his death, universities kind of reopened. The famous Chinese Gaokao was restored. I was the first year of Gaokao. But during the Cultural Revolution, we were sent to the countryside, so my formal school stopped at third grade. I was a third grader when I was about to try to get into the university. I kind of finished high school math book in 3 months by myself, and I took the Gaokao. I was pretty good. I got the highest score in my region, so I went to Peking University. That's and the rest is kind of a history. Okay. So today's talk is about the trade war. I think there's a kind of an interesting evolution in trade war. It's at the beginning, people ask why. Why is there a trade war? But somehow that why question gradually gradually disappeared, and people become saying, okay, who is going to win? Who is going to last longer? Who is going to blink first? So if you, I kind of followed all the interviews of experts. They all focus on, you know, who can raise more taxes and the tariffs, and who can. That's why I think we should really go back to why and there is a trade war to begin with, and what is the implication. Okay. Okay. A little bit of a brief review of what China has done in the past is, I think, is necessary. In 1949, after the Communist Party took power, Mao, the leader of the party, followed a very ultra-radical policy, revolutionary policy. I don't have to describe that too much. So after his death, Deng Xiaoping was kind of was the de facto leader, and he is very practical. Right? One of his famous quotation is, well, I think back then under his leadership there was opening up. If we sum up the opening up policy, I think there are two major points. One is decentralization, meaning decentralized from the central government to local government, decentralized from government to firms, let them do what they can do, even for state-owned firms. And second policy was opening up. Deng Xiaoping, his idea was to learn from foreign investors, from foreign management, get the capital, get the managerial knowledge. So that's his policy. He was accused of going capitalism. So in his defense, he said, doesn't matter it doesn't matter whether it's a black cat or white cat, as long as the cat catches mice, it's a good cat. So essentially, he says, don't debate on isms, and let's just do it. So once I was in Macau, in a little gift shop, I saw this little figure of Deng Xiaoping. I really love it. If you look at that figure, Deng is a chain smoker, so he's smoking, right? And he sits on the red sofa. That symbolizes, hey, I'm still communist. Don't get rid of me. I'm not a capitalist. Yeah, so that's his kind of defense. But he has a pair of slippers. The slippers, one is a white cat, one is a black cat. So it's kind of very, very interesting. Unfortunately, that is not available in China. I don't think the party has a sense of humor yet. So he said, don't challenge the world power. Let's just keep quiet, doing our own business, make money. Essentially, he's making money. He has, so now we attribute this called the Tao Guang Yang Hui. Hide your claws, wait for your time. This kind of has a kind of negative feeling, but interestingly, China Daily had a long article about that phrase. Okay, so this is the background, all right? So that was in China. So what happened outside China? Well, outside China, at the beginning, I did not have a line, but I should add it. At the beginning, the US, led by President Reagan, I think, well, even before Reagan, Carter normalized the diplomatic relations with China in 1980, I believe. 79. So in 1980, Reagan came to power. Reagan issued an executive order to give China the most advanced military technology. Because I think there were two arguments for that. One is, back then, China said we were very weak, and our weakness was your fault. You had opium war, the West had opium war, and America has been our enemy, so you need to help us. And the Americans kind of listened. And second reason was to counter Soviet Union. So they gave China very advanced technology. So there's what was the Western's major or dominant thought? Now we call them engagement. Their thought is, well, China is still under communism, or at least under Communist Party, and China is not a democracy. It's under party dictatorship. Should we do business with it? So there was a debate. And the engagement people said, well, look at the history. Look at what happens in Europe. In Europe, the middle class was the key force of democratization. The argument was, look at England. The super wealthy, the big business, they have their own relations with the government. They can protect themselves because they're super wealthy, they're powerful. The poor, they are not concerned with property. They had no property. They have nothing to lose. That's what Marx called, they only lose their chain, so they're the revolutionary. But the middle class were caught in the middle. They made money independent of the king, independent of the powerful people. But they had no protection other than they need the rule of law. So that's the beginning of the Magna Carta. 800 years ago, 大宪章. The key of Magna Carta is no one is above the law, even the king. So the middle class, back then was called bourgeoisie, was behind that. So the engagement people argue, well, once China become wealthy by doing business with us, then there will be a middle class, and they will demand democracy. So therefore, we should engage in China and hope that will happen. Okay. So economic development begets political reform, begets democracy. That was what happened in Europe. Okay. Okay, I should mention that book. That is the poli-sci people probably know that book pretty well by Barrington Moore. He has a famous saying called "No bourgeoisie, no democracy." That was his one phrase summing up the Western's experience. Okay. That was the beginning of the, I would say, late 70s, China began to open up. And maybe in the 80s, the engagement was there until maybe 2001, when China was admitted to the WTO. And up to today, 40 years later, well, democracy did not happen in China. Okay. So why? What is wrong? Okay. If we go back to this well-known scholar, Ming-Shin Pei, he has a theory. He's a political scientist. He looked at, and I also did what he did. Many people did that with a multi-country regression over 100 years to see the relationship between the political system and the political system and the economic development. Essentially, Ming-Shin Pei argued that the threshold for democratization is 6,000 GDP per capita. Okay, and also so that was his theory, and a theory that was dominant in the engagement school. Okay, but now China has certainly passed that 6,000 US dollar per capita, but democracy never happened. It wasn't really a complete surprise by many people. The political scholars, Jie Chen, he studied, he used survey methods, different survey methods, quite sophisticated, even because we know survey study in China is not really completely free. When people answer it, they are afraid of government monitoring or whatever. So how do you indirectly detect people's true feeling? But they have methods. So based on all his survey, he wrote a book called "A Middle Class Without Democracy." The book was, if I remember, it's like 10 years ago. So it was a new book. But recently I met him. He said, you know, Shaomin, I was right. I said, why you were right? He said, I look at all the so-called middle class people. Why? What I said, what's the difference? He said, the bourgeoisies, the middle class in England hundreds of years ago, they made their money independent of the king, independent of the powerful government. So they essentially, they can say, okay, I'm going to stand up and defend my property. For that, I can do it because I have an independent economic resource to do that. And he said, I look at all the so-called middle class people in China, including successful firms. And he said, I couldn't find anyone who can survive without the government, either by choice or by no choice. See, I'm American. I'm a professor at American school. We know in American school there's it's from England. There's a system called the tenure system. What is tenure system about? I keep asking my Chinese friends, 终身教授, 你们那儿有终身教授? I said, do you have tenure systems? Well, at first, we have several prominent scholars. They're 终身教授. said, do you understand that the origin of tenure professor is not about how many papers you publish. It is about academic freedom. What if I publish something my president, my boss, he does not like? I will lose my job. So that is the reason we're tenured. You know, and in a sense, my income from the university is independent of this president or provost, as long as I'm tenured, as long as I don't commit any crimes, right? But that makes me independent. I can see what I feel I can. But we have all the friends from China. Think about yourself. Are you independent? Can you do that? And anyone you know who are well-to-do, they're very wealthy. But can they stand up and say, "Oh, I don't like Xi Jinping"? Can you say that? No, I don't have to answer that. You can, it's a foregone conclusion. So because of that, I look at my family members. I'm from a sibling of 4. My wife is from a sibling of 4. So there are 8 people. 8 people. My siblings and their children. Some of them are doing really well. So, but none of them can independently survive. So that is not a middle class in the classical sense when people look at the history of Europe. Okay. The reason is not their fault, but the government or the party, in the case of China, the government is a party. So the political scientists use a term which is very short, party state. So the party state controls more and more and more. That is, whether by intention or they trial by error, they found that is the most effective way. So once that happens, people lose independence. You just cannot have that democratization. So in that regard, the engagement school was wrong, or they failed. Okay. Yeah, the party state, I think, it may worth mentioning because what is a political party? Is the Chinese Communist Party similar to the Democrats and the Republicans we have here? Well, the answer is no. Why? Look at the criterion. I mean, political scientists call it a Leninist party because it was founded by Lenin. And it has an ideology. The ideology essentially says the party knows the best, knows the future, therefore we have to lead because that's a mandate based on the ideology. And the party has membership. Okay. For people who don't know it, Republicans or Democrats here, there's no membership. Today, I like Republican, I vote Republican, I'm a Republican. No one can expel me from Republican. And tomorrow, I hate the candidates, I switch to Democrats. And again, no one can either stop me or ask me. There's no clear membership. And the organization is very hierarchical, Politburo, whatever. It's from the Soviet Union. And the key departments, propaganda, personnel, United Front. So essentially, the party has to control the whole country. It's very logical. And the party is extra legal. It's above the law. The party can enforce its own law to the whole society. So that is the organ, the organization. So I think whoever translated the Communist Party, that communist organization into a party made a huge mistake. Party is what? Let's party. If I don't like it, I leave. 派对. But this is not that kind of a party. Okay. Another point I want to make is China's industrial policies. This is an industrial organization, people who study this. One of the leading scholar by the name James Wen. His Chinese name is Wen Guanzhong. He's an economist. He essentially said the industrial policy that China practices is they identify certain key industries, for instance, telecom, high-speed rail, and then do some protection. You cannot freely come to play. And then they will mobilize the whole country's resource into those few key industries and develop them. And those industries are the industries that has a very large economy of scale and a very high fixed cost investment. So you need a large country. If the country is large, you can do that. You can close the door. Even Japan cannot do it. Japan or Taiwan or whatever, you do not have a large enough domestic market to do that. But China has. The U.S. also has. Okay, but U.S. has never done that. So once you develop the industry to fully realize the economy of scale, to lower the per unit cost, then you can be the most efficient producer in the world, and then you go out to compete in the free market. And this morning we talk about the high-speed rail. That's a perfect example. Now the student, what's it, CRRC, has defeated, that's a Chinese national railroad company, has defeated the teachers, the Siemens and Esther from Japan. Okay. And I see in telecom, even today, China's telecom is not really open to carriers. But domestically, it's a large enough market to do this. Okay. The U.S. had the opportunity, but U.S. has never done that. After World War II, U.S. essentially could do this kind of industrial policy and conquer the whole world. Okay. Another feature of the Chinese way is, whether we like it, I mean, I couldn't find a more a neutral term, but the rule over law versus rule of law. I mean, in the domestic market, as I said, the party is the law. We know that it's above the law. Whatever they feel this is the right way to do it, we can do it. You know. But internationally, they will have to play the game of the rule of law. So they will hire the best lawyers and game this system. So that this is a huge advantage, whereas other countries that follow the rule of law probably cannot do. Okay, so now the trade war. That is the background of the trade war. Why people say, okay, that is Trump. Actually, as we talked about even today, it's not really Trump. It is probably, I would say, the U.S. society as a whole began to gradually realize this is not the way they can play. Okay. So Trump had a very, if we say it's Trump had a very quick learning curve. At the beginning, Trump was focusing on trade surplus or trade deficit. And now he doesn't mention the word deficit or trade much. Before he said, you know, we have to balance trade. In order to balance trade, we have to erect a tariff. But someone was educating him, so now he kind of gradually changed to other demands. U.S. started to impose a high tariff as a punitive tariff on China, and China did the same on the U.S. So what does each side want from the other? Well, at the beginning, it was just, you know, if we kind of categorize two categories. One is, well, improve. From the U.S. perspective, let's be a little bit more fair. Trump, a key word Trump likes to repeat is reciprocity, reciprocal. You know, we have this, you have, and you should match. Tariff. I just want to give you an example of the most favored nations that Elan this morning mentioned. What does the most favored nation mean? The most favored nation is you gave the best tariff to my most favored nation partner that as I gave to the best to others. Does that sound fair? I give you the best treatment I'm giving to all the trading partners. So you can rest assured you will be really favored. So take the example of automobile. U.S. automobile, U.S. charge 2.5% on automobile importing to the U.S. So China is the most favored nation of U.S. So China will have 2.5% tariff when Chinese cars selling to the U.S. So what about U.S. cars selling to China? So U.S. cars selling to China, China says, okay, I'm going to give you the most favored nation status. And China look around, well, my favorite tax is 25%. So I gave you 25%. And you should be very happy because that's the best I can do. So, and that is within the WTO rules. That's why the Trump is saying, I don't really like this rule. So that's the most improvement. But the fundamental changes that the U.S. demand are more fundamental. The state has to kind of reduce its role in sponsoring Chinese firms, open the internet, and all those demands. And the U.S. is very concerned with Made in China 2025 because that was in the U.S. It was like they will do whatever it takes to become a dominant player in certain key industries. What does China want from the U.S.? Well, I couldn't find any, so I said nothing. China just wants to keep the status quo. Yeah?
I think it wants more than that.
Oh.
It should be allowed a free range in Asia Pacific.
Well, I mean, just okay. So, but in terms of trade, there's essentially the U.S. market. We talk about Trump as a protectionist. We talk about now we're going back to protectionism. What do we protect? The market is completely open, 2.5% tariff for everyone. Actually, Trump did mention let's have zero tariff between each other. But I don't think China can do that. But U.S. can easily do that. It's only from 2.5 to 0. It's very little. Yeah. Well, the trade war began with tariff, began with relatively simple demand, but there wasn't any agreement. Back and forth, it's an escalation. Now the U.S. began to pay more attention to what they called structural problems. They want China to make structural changes. At the same time, President Xi said, we want to be the participant, initiator, and leader of global governance reform and development. And that, as I read it, I think that worries the U.S. a lot. Here we have all the people from China. You must have insights. What does that mean? China wants to be the global governance leader. What kind of rules are there? I think that people want to know. Okay, and Trump now is very much determined to. I don't know what the term to put it to carry that trade war to the end. And he said, somebody had to take China on. And even later on, he said, I'm the chosen one. If you remember, he said, I'm the chosen one. That was very strong. Christians know what that means. Non-Christian may have a difficulty. Essentially, he's chosen by God to fight this. Okay. Yeah. And I must add, the recent development in China made people even more worrisome because the 10-year Cultural Revolution, even in Chinese official document, was 10-year chaos, 10年动乱. I don't know, I translate 10-year chaos or the turmoil. But now it becomes 10年艰辛探索, means this is a painful exploration to the same end. So it's maybe that is a norm. If that's a norm, that can be worrisome. We just hope not. Okay. More complaints from the US side. Okay. I just copied this from the Wall Street Journal article. In the Wall Street Journal article, sometimes has very good cartoons. And on the upper left-hand side, that's their cartoon. The lack of reciprocity, the lack of symmetry. Okay. Everything from China is allowed because this is a democracy. This is an open society. Official news network from China, fine. Confucius Institute, which is a kind of a soft power tool projected by the party, fine. And China Daily, whatever. I mean, this is just a no restriction whatsoever. But Google, if you use Gmail, you may not open it in China. Facebook is certainly a big no. YouTube, a lot of things China would not allow US to do. Okay, so there's no reciprocity. Okay. So now the Chinese, as I read the reactions of American administration, the US administration, I think now the talk is become, before it said let's hope to get an agreement, but now more and more the maybe we can call the hawks, the more people who are more critical of China, they begin to talk more and more about decoupling. Even today, I have heard people talking about decoupling. Okay. And why is it? Why does the U.S. begin to talk decoupling? That's probably another topic. They fear that they just cannot play with China in this based on the current rules. Because China does not follow the rules, and there's no way the U.S. or ability for the U.S. to enforce the rules. But quickly, the Chinese social commentators, unofficial commentators began to make fun of decoupling. So this Hong Huang is a Chinese commentator. She's known to be very sarcastic. She said, decoupling, let's see. Where can we find Chinese and corrupt Chinese officials? Well, you can find them in China. You can find them in the U.S. as well, because most of them probably already escaped, and so on and so forth. Who are the people? Where you can find people who blast the U.S. government? Well, you can find a lot among here. We can blast Trump anytime we like. There's no fear. And you can find a lot of people in China can blast Trump. That's true. So she was taking a very sarcastic way, but there is a seriousness underneath her comments. Even look at this, half-joking list. You can see decoupling is not that easy. Okay, so let's see. Coming back to the fight, to the economic war or trade war. In terms of the size of the economy, both are more or less the same if you take the PPP based. Okay. Each about maybe 18 to 20% of the world. So they're similar. If you use the CIA.com World Facts, China's economy is slightly bigger than the US economy. Okay. Although the per capita income has a huge difference, reliance on trade, China relies on trade a lot more than the US. Okay. The one I made bold and with larger font is how much of the GDP is under the government control. I calculated that based on World Bank, US data, and the Chinese statistical yearbook. So it's all from open source. If anything, it's kind of more conservative. But based on my calculation, the U.S. government can control about 33% of the GDP, the total GDP of this country. And Chinese government at least controls 61% of the GDP. Yeah, and it may be even bigger. I don't have other statistics. So in fighting this trade war, economically, the Chinese government has a lot more cash or resource to use than the U.S. government. So that is quite true. So when in China they complain, well, why do we spend so much money in Africa, free money? But that free money, if you compare to the size of the GDP or the government control, that's very small. Of course, I mean, things add up, and you have to move things from other. I also want to make a comment. The 33% controlled by the U.S. government, the bulk of it is on healthcare, social security, and the military. Okay, and the Chinese case, healthcare is very little. Social security is also relatively small. Yeah. Okay. So what are the options for the party state leading China forward? And I can only speculate. When I say two options, actually there's maybe 2.5 or more than two. Okay. Why China needs to, okay. Here's the dilemma for the party state. The party state is very clear. As I read it, many people probably agree. The party state, the number one objective is to keep the party to dominate China forever. That is the party said it quite clearly without any disguise. It's just that we want to lead because we know the best. To do that, it's not a democracy, we know, right? So for a non-democracy, for a kind of authoritarian, somebody use a totalitarian regime, the best way to keep it stable is to close the door. You close the door and shield all the foreign influence, then you can just have a kind of internal equilibrium maybe to forever. Can China do that? Well, not really, because as I just showed, China relies on international trade more than the U.S. So to keep the Chinese economy going, you need globalization, you need trade. When you need trade, you need people to go out. When people go out and the foreigners going in, there will be an exchange of ideas. And the exchange of ideas will bring some ideas that the party just does not like democracy, rule of law, universal value. The party doesn't think those are conducive to maintaining their rule. They say, okay, we don't want that. But that's difficult. On the one hand, you need the opening door. You need to keep the door open. On the other hand, you have to guard from those. So that is the dilemma for the party. Going forward, okay. The two extremes are idealized way. It's just to show the point. It's like we show, aerodynamics. We have to assume away friction. So let's assume away all the different things like culture, tradition. Just take a look at the green and the red circle. Okay. One choice is for China to embrace universal value. Democracy, rule of law, just like all the other countries in the world. That is one option on the far left. On the far right is, well, China the party state can decide, okay, we're going to close the door. We don't want to deal with all those. Keep it to ourselves. So that is another way. But the party needs the outside world, or the Chinese economy needs the outside world to trade, to maintain this economy. So you either change to the world, or you change the world according to China. That's another extreme. Okay. In between, you can have status quo, nothing. we just keep it at ease. My reading is the party is probably trying to do that. Just keep it at ease, and they keep saying there's a win-win situation. Don't do the trade war, and it will hurt each other. So that is, my reading is keep the status quo. The question is, does America want to keep the status quo? In the status quo, the American administration feel it's not fair. So probably they do not want to keep the status quo. So it's not the equilibrium. Okay. Now, many things that the U.S. government is trying to push China to change. Okay. That is very risky, and for the U.S., well, there's a lot of externality in that. Maybe other countries may see a more rule-abiding China to their benefit, but who is going to pay for that cost? Okay. So again, it's an oversimplified kind of a decision tree. What is going to happen if the U.S. does not do anything? That will be this. It will be a status quo, and that increasingly, I think that is not what the U.S. is doing. Okay. If you push China to change, it's risky. To the green circle is China say, okay, we're going to change. So that is probably the best for everybody. In my view, or in many views of in the view of many Americans, I would argue, I would guess. But what if China says no? Well, if China says no, it is very risky for both countries, I think. Okay, so that's a very quick review of the background. After all, we're management scholars here. Why do we have to worry about that? I will use this analogy as a management scholar. Management scholar is looking at the micro, the lowest unit of analysis, workers and the firms. And workers, firms, industry, country, world. That is we come to the more micro. Okay. So if we use the whole economy as a forest, we're the ones who are looking at the leaves, the little leaves, whether they change. That's primarily management scholar. But my argument is you have to know what's going on in the forest in order to read the leaves. If you don't know there's a huge climate change going on, how can you read that one leaf? So what are the implications? I mean, this is the most difficult part. I mean, all of us, we want to produce more papers, and that is what counts. You know, talking about trade war without any concrete research topic that can lead to papers is maybe academically a waste of our time. Okay. The first topic, institutional change. That's a huge topic in IB. The institutional change, essentially the institutionalists, they assume change is one direction. The direction is from institutional voice, like Elaine said in the morning, or no institutions or no market institutions, gradually change to a free market institution, maybe rule of law, maybe democracy. That is the direction of change. But is that the only direction that goes? But China probably provide a counterexample. Should we have another institutional genre, institutional school of thought that study the back and the forth of institutional change and the reverse of institutional change? Or what we call the institutional duality, a firm or country that follows two different institutional settings. Now China follows one institutional setting in China and another one outside China. Can that be sustainable? Can that be in an equilibrium? The boundary of firm, I think China really put a lot of challenge to that. What is a firm? We talk about Huawei. This morning I heard comments that, Anyone who thinks Huawei is a state firm, wrong. Huawei is a private firm. But as I read it, Huawei has 1% owned by Ren Zhengfei, and the 99% are owned by employees. Really, that sounds great. So some legal scholar in Washington, Dan Clark from George Washington University, he followed up to the point who owns it, and eventually he found the 99% of the stocks were kept in the workers' union. And then he said, who controls workers' union? Well, the party branch controls workers' union. So he asked the people who are supposed to own the shares, do you vote? No, we don't vote. The party collectively vote for us. So what is that? I don't have the answer, but I think the boundary of the firm has been moved. What we know as a firm, a private firm, and what we know as the rights of this private firm does not really have a complete realization in China. Okay. I interviewed some people. This Director Wang is a HR director in China. And he said, he told me a story I found interesting. Maybe the Chinese colleagues think that's really common knowledge. He said when he hires people, his firm has three types of people, groups. Number one are the people who are pushed to him from the higher ups. Those are the children of powerful people. And he said, I either hire them or I get fired, so I have no choice. And I never really ask them to do much. The second ones are the ones that he called, I don't even know how to translate, ma zai. Essentially, he said, those are the people who, if you have to do some illegal things, they will do it for you. And if they're caught, they won't implicate you, but you take care of their family. So there's a second group. And the third group, he said, those are the people who do real work. They're talented, able, and I have to help them to deliver the results. I mean, that sounds like a private decision or a isolated decision of the firm. But think about that. The firm's authority to hire has been, the boundary has been broken. It is actually being invaded by the overall environment of that society. Okay. I interviewed a lawyer. I said, are the cases in China really follow the rule of law, or they are all corrupt? What is the case? And he gave me an interesting summary. He said, depends. Three types of case: small cases, medium-sized cases, and big cases. I said, what do you mean? He said, small cases are like neighborhood disputes. And the judge usually are very impartial and very professional and follow the rule of law. Those are the small cases. Because his argument is, if the judge doesn't do that, people will really hate him. Medium-sized cases, he said, that depends on your relationship. Who has better relations will have upper hand. So essentially, he said, it's like you bribe the, see, it's a competition who can bribe the judge better. And big cases, he said, they're political. The party will decide what to do. So you have no role. So that is his interpretation. Okay. How does that impact firm behavior? Again, firms' legal rights has been kind of encroached by so overall, you can see to what extent, and the last question is my question at the beginning, to what extent firms are independent of the state. Okay. If I do a study, if I have the resource, I will study all the occupations in China, all the industry codes. In China has about, if I'm correct, 42 digits industry codes, and 600 detailed industries. as we said in Chinese, 360行. Some of those industries, some of those occupations must be relatively less dependent on the party state. Some will be more, some will be less. Is that true? I don't know. It needs an independent study to verify the earlier argument by political scientists whether China has truly independent middle class, or to what degree China has truly independent firms or even just citizens, residents. Okay. To me, that is the key to understand the future of China. Okay. Why is that important? In management study, or any scholar will say, can your theory be generalized? If your theory only applies to one country, that's not a good theory. There are 300 countries. You have to have 300 theories. That's a very, very weak theory. My answer is yes. If China is a small country, it does not worth any effort. But no, China accounts for 20% of the world GDP. It's a huge country. Population-wise, it's also huge. So because of that, it is like a quarter of the whole world. That's why it is very important and significant. We have to study it. Because in the world, when you're dealing with a Chinese firm, you're not dealing with a firm that we know traditionally. You're dealing with a firm that has a blurred or fuzzy boundary with the state, with other things. How do you deal with it? Okay, it is a reality. Okay. I will probably stop here because talking about future research topics, I don't want to give away. Well, I don't have much to give away, but it's really up to the management scholar to do that. I give you an anecdote why this is important. And the other day, I ran into a editor of AOM editor, and I chatted with him, and he said, Shaomin, he said, how come management scholars don't study the trade war? How come they don't really get into this background when they study? And he called it, there's a glaring void, glaring blank in this area. So why don't you write a proposal and we can do it. I wrote a short proposal. Many people say, when does the paper come out? Can we see it? So there is a demand. But I realize this is not an easy topic to study. But I kind of challenge people here to think about that, and even from not only from a theoretical perspective, think about the practical aspects. CEOs, MNC managers, they want to know how to navigate the trade war. Can we give them an answer? I hope we can. Okay. Thank you. Sure. Why not?
Okay. Are there any questions from anyone? I think this table maybe has questions.
Hong Kong is 40,000 a year. A lot of people make money on their own. What's going to happen?
Huh. Well, that's a big question. I spent 6 years in Hong Kong. And before I came to Old Dominion, I was a professor at CityU of Hong Kong. So I think I could claim I know a little bit about Hong Kong. I met many people now from Hong Kong. I feel so sad about what's going on in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong people's demand is, I think they have 5 points. The 5 points, the most key one, the most important one is universal election. And I don't think Chinese government is going to give it to them. Looking forward, I'm not very optimistic because now it becomes very confrontational. I talk to business people who do not, some are not really, who are fairly neutral. And they say the real shock, the most significant, important event in Hong Kong was some time ago, they had 2 million people on the street. That was the end of the peaceful demonstration. I think that was close to July 1 or July something. 2 million people. Think about Hong Kong has only about less than 8 million people. If you just if you don't count the old, and the very young, 2 million people is a lot. And they did not, they were not violent. Back then, that was what's called 非暴力理性. So it's a non-violent and peaceful. 2 million people walk on street silently. And they think that really shocked Carrie Lam, Lin Zheng, the executive. But after that, it became gradually more violent because the government did not really respond in a way that can quiet down but now it's confrontational. I just read today one young student was shot in the chest. His life was in danger. The shot was very close. He provoked it, and the police just shot him with real ammunition. And the police, Hong Kong police, as I know it, was very professional. When I was in Hong Kong CTU, one of my graduates, the best one, he went to the police force. I was like, in the U.S., we don't really know. You're from one of the best universities, best student, and he said, you don't understand. Police is a very respected occupation, and paid very well. So he was like winning a lottery to be there, and his classmates were very kind of admire him. But now it seems it's all gone. The police versus the people. That's horrible. I don't see a near-term solution to that.
Shaomin,
Yeah.
there's a group of Chinese who was very upset.
Okay.
Them speaking while you're
Yeah.
speaking. They want to ask in Chinese. They feel more comfortable. Is it
Sure.
okay if they ask
Sure.
in Chinese and you can
Sure.
translate?
Yeah.
Please.
Oh.
You can speak Chinese. In America, we entertain all voices, and we appreciate all perspectives. So please speak. I'm sorry, I can't speak Chinese because I want to express myself I'll give you the microphone, and then I'll run back to you. Hold on, I'll give you the microphone because we want to hear your voice. We want to hear your perspective. And this is our way in China Goes Global.
I want to say I'm from Eminent, Shanghai. Yeah, I'm a DBA student, but I'm not good at English, or I can study here earlier. And recently, I came to America, and I met different people, like Uber driver. They told me China is a superpower. I'm very weird. I found that, in my opinion, in China, the superpower in this world is only country. That's American. That's US. So I don't know what's the difference between US and China, why the people in American thought China is a superpower, but in China, no one thinks about that. So today, I just want to ask the speaker, what's your last time you came to China? I want to know the first.
So I'll give you the microphone in a minute. But there's
Okay.
one more thing that this group has said, that, if I may share.
Yeah, okay.
You said that he lies. Why did he say that he's wrong?
No,
He's a liar?
we don't say he lies. I just want to know what's the last time you visit China?
Okay, that's a fair question. Hold on.
3 months ago, I went to China about maybe 20 times in the past 4 years. And I talked to various people in China, from officials to private citizens. But it's not based on my personal experience. It's based on what I read and the data that I have. That's nothing personal. We're in a way, as a scholar, you have to be value-free, although we cannot do it completely. And if you think I lied, no, I'm more than welcome to have you point out which slides, there's a recording, which phrase, which sentence is inaccurate. I will be very happy to correct. I stand to be corrected. I don't want to be wrong. I really want, I truly appreciate if anyone say, okay, this is inaccurate. I will change it. I will verify and change it. I want to add one more thing. Okay, it's an anecdote. Our university has many Chinese exchange partners. And one of the partner schools said, Professor Li, why don't you come to give a lecture? I said, sure. I was visiting on my own. I said, I can just take a detour to the university to give a lecture. And then this person is a 外事处长, foreign affairs director. And he was half jokingly said, oh, Professor Li, 现在都是爱党爱国啊，要爱党爱国。So Professor Li, now we're all very much love the country, love the party. So be sure, love the country, love the party. I said, sure. I'm an American citizen. I love U.S. I love Republican. I'm a Republican. I was joking. He was half joking. So, but in China, I make sure I don't offend the host, but I never talk something that I don't believe. I can be silent on the issue. Out of respect, not out of cowardice, just out of respect. I can be silent, but you don't, I just cannot say something I don't believe, okay?
This lady was...
Professor Li, I really appreciate you share so much information. To be honest, some of those information, this is the first time I'm listening. So I really appreciate. I'm sure that including myself, including my dear peers, we are here to learn. So it's very good to listen to different voices because this is a very good way for us to learn, to grow. I just have one quick question for you, and before the question, I'd like to also share some of my personal experience. To be honest, the first picture you shared, it is an image that recalls some of my personal memory. I was born in 1960s during the spatial time period we called 10 years, the Chinese Cultural Revolutionary. We both remember that date, right? Okay, I was born during that time period. And my first job, I was a teacher for 6 years. Why I quit that job, actually I love it very much. Why I quit? Because I couldn't get my payroll just in time. And I need money to support my kid. That was over 25 years ago. So I had to quit my first job, and I went to the South part Guangdong province to apply for a job in a foreign company. And when I went to the job market, to be honest, I was totally lost because I was a high school teacher I was there teaching the students English. I know nothing about the company. I didn't know what was the right job that I could apply for. So I just read all the job description to find appropriate job for myself. And in the end, I thought, okay, I am quick learner about language. I speak Mandarin, I speak English. I might be a good bridge between the Chinese operators and the foreign management. So I went to a big foreign company. I applied for the assistant to the senior executive. That was my first job in a company.
Excuse me, just for 1 second.
Yeah.
Please get to the question because there's a few
The
other
question is, the story can be shortened. Okay, I'm trying to share the personal experience. That was 25 years ago. I was experienced a hard time, and that experience made me stronger and enabled me to continually learn to be a better self. And nowadays, more than 10 years ago, I finished my MBA in France, sponsored by a company. That's an American company. I really appreciate my employer. And then now I am DBA student here. What I'm saying, yeah, we were in a very hard time and we are becoming better. But we are on the way. To be a democratic country is not just overnight. We all love freedom. Me too, believe me. So I'm saying we can't make everything overnight. We are doing everything. I'm happy that we are getting better. My question is, what is Made in China 2025? To be honest, I don't really know what this is. Yes.
Okay, maybe one more question, and then I'll let Shaomin finish the speech.
First of all, I would like to say I wasn't born in China, and I haven't lived in China before. I would like to go back to the Hong Kong, the issue. What I feel is the situation is sad, as you say, is terrible. I've seen in Channel 4 in the UK, young people, 17, 18 years old, are saying that they have a message for their parents, for their family, in case anything happened to them in Hong Kong, and then that's a sort of last words. How I feel is, okay, they're so young. Is it really right, sort of, to sacrifice themselves because things can get quite ugly? And if you are young people in the UK, a lot of them are working 0 hours contract. They're exploited by the capitalist system. So in a way, what I think is, why are you going to sacrifice your life? And in exchange, you want to work in a capitalist company, be exploited, 0 hours contract, work long hours for £5 an hour, something like that, not on a wage that you couldn't live on. So I think that in a way people need to think about it. I've been to China for the past few years, twice a year, and what I have seen is people are quite happy. At least all the people I've met, they are enjoying their lives. Maybe they're living in a bubble, but they are doing well, economically at least, and politically. They seem. You can see the Chinese words everywhere. They're saying democracy, all the big words. Maybe they have a different interpretation. What I think is, there are different systems in the world. America got a system, China got systems. They are not completely different, but maybe there's no good or bad system. They're just different.
I guess there was no question there. Is there anyone with a question? A question only, not a speech, please. One question. One sentence question.
I'm a Chinese living in Europe. I think I have a different perspective. So 2008, as the Tibet independent initiative, they want to boycott Olympic Games. And all our Chinese living in Europe, we try to unite it, and we really supported. I and other Chinese, we organize a quiet demonstration, walking to the Lausanne, to the Olympic. But now, what happening in Hong Kong, what I see, the European living Chinese have totally different opinion as the Chinese who are living in China. And it happened in my family. I really argued every day with my parents. They are living with me together. If I said there are 2 million people go on the street, my parents say, they lie. Why you believe European media? As the lady who also told, she said, she heard a story that a Hong Kong Chinese said he went on the street because he got the money, 1,000 Hong Kong dollar. That is the story. I just say, I'm very sad because 11 years ago, all Chinese, either they are living outside China or in China, they have one will, they support with each other. But now, due to the Hong Kong issue, even within the family, with my parents, we have such conflict. I'm very sad. But one thing I can say, if I type something in the group, in WeChat group, with my very close friends and my colleagues, if I say something critical, they are all very nervous. I think if we believe China are strong enough, we should be tolerant to the second loyalty and second loyalty to our home country. That is a book I read as I was 16, but it is not allowed, this book. 第二种忠诚 这本书已经是禁书了。I think we should be tough enough to face a second loyalty. We have to be tough enough to say, now there is a one-party system, okay, but our president, he can be unlimited on the term. Is this really a progress, or is this a positive thing? I think if we only think about it, we are courage enough to say and question about it. I would say that is a big change in our mind. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. I want to have one Western perspective, just one, and then I'm going to give the last word to Shaomin. You had your hand. Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, you didn't? Yeah. Anybody? Yeah, you have one. Go for it.
Yeah, I'd like to give the definition to lie. Yeah, because I don't think a lie is intendedly to say something wrong, but I do think maybe some very important information is hidden. Yeah. So I'm in the very early stage of DBA study. So in my opinion, to be a scholar, we have to understand the truth. It's very important. Otherwise, we see nothing. It's my opinion. Yeah.
Is there anything that he said that you want to say that was missing from the presentation? Do you want to say something? Do you want to add something?
I'd like to say it's not the whole picture. I just want to say that.
Do you want to add something to the picture? Okay. All right, I'm going to give the last word to Shaomin as our keynoter, and then we'll close the speech.
Okay. There is a significant difference between lying and lack of information. Okay, you are accusing me as a liar. That's pretty serious. And I really want to know which part, and you don't have any concrete evidence. So essentially, you don't like my attitude. But I don't want to profess you. I don't want to be, lecture on you. But there's a there's a clear difference between facts and my opinions. I am entitled, as you are, of my own opinions. They don't have to be correct. And so are you saying the party always give you a complete picture? Why doesn't the party allow you to visit YouTube? Why doesn't the party allow you to visit Google? Why doesn't the party? Why does the party always delete WeChat things, WeChat information? Is the party giving you the complete picture? Can you answer that? I don't want you to answer. I don't want to put you in trouble. Actually, the fact I don't want to put you in trouble already proved my point. The party doesn't. Okay, so let me finish. Since Ilan gave me the China. You know, someone said I said China is a superpower. I'm trying to look at my slides. I don't see it. But again, even if I said China is a superpower, that's my opinion. It's just a individual person's opinion. Okay. Furthermore, I didn't say that. And some others said, well, China is getting better and better. That implies I said China is getting worse and worse. Again, I never said that. Secondly, even if I said that, that is my opinion. I'm entitled to any opinion, and I support all my opinion with facts. It's just a free academic debate that we have people here who are not accustomed to, and I think it's worthwhile to learn. Okay, I just want to add one more thing. The problem in China, some alluded to that, and like the change of the constitution by the party leaders so that there's no term limit. And I can perfectly see the rationale. Why? Because whatever the system, again, it's not. I don't have time to comment on whether the system is good or bad. It's a value judgment. But I want to point out one simple fact. Does anyone know how the party leader, the supreme leader, is generated? I asked one central committee member. I asked a 中央委员. I said, do you know how the General Secretary 总书记 is elected? He said, no, I don't. That's his answer to me. And I'm not surprised, because think about this. Xi Jinping is not inherited. His position is not inherited. He's not a princeling. It's not a dynasty. He has to get the support of his colleagues. Maybe in the Politburo, we don't know whom, but got to have people who support him to put him there. Am I right? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not intentionally lying here, okay? So people who put Xi Jinping in that power, now they know Xi Jinping can easily take them down by Xi Jinping's power. So what, in the repeated game, think about this, who is going to elect someone in the future that someone can put me in jail? So that is, the political science has this age-long problem. How can a non-democratic system generate the next leader? If China cannot successfully solve that, it is, if I were a Chinese citizen, I'm going to worry. Finally, I am not talking about China or Chinese citizens. By the way, I have no, it is not about China, the people. It is not about Chinese, the society. I'm talking about the China's political system. I'm talking about China's Communist Party. It's different from China. The party's logic is very, very simple. If you criticize a party, you're against China, you're a traitor, you're 反华. I don't agree with that logic at all. Okay, so this is probably I think the problem the Chinese has to face. I made my comments 100% from a citizen of the United States. I look at China from this perspective, nothing more than that. Whether China choose a different road, different direction, in the sense, I'm not concerned, I'm not in it. I don't live there, you guys live there. But why do I concern? Because what Chinese government does will affect the United States. That's why as a citizen, as a global citizen, I should be concerned. There's nothing wrong with that. Period.
I want to thank Shaomin very much for his courage, insight, and education. I've learned a lot from him, and I hope the rest of you have too. And I'm going to hand the microphone to Wenxian for a moment.
Thank you. Shaomin, wait here for a second. Wow, this is not what I expect when I sit down looking for a nice keynote. But I'm so glad there's some genuine academic exchange taking place. This is what academic freedom is all about. So we have a different perspective, so we have more comprehensive understanding. So we're not free to speak what we believe. So we can argue, we can disagree. I know I have something I have in common with Professor Li. We both graduated from Peking University. And I know he's a big fan of Cultural Revolution propaganda paintings. He collects that. He was actually interviewed by Voice of America, which I enjoy very much. So as a token of appreciation, on behalf of Chinese Globalization Association, I would like to present this book to you in Chinese, published by Peking University, China Visualized by Americans. Thank you.
You know, we thanked a lot of people. I want to say that I'm so appreciative to be part of this association, part of this academic exchange, to learn from all of you. But I think we forgot to thank maybe the most important person in this conference who made this all possible, who made us enjoyable time, who gave us a tour of the lakes, who gave us a wonderful environment, and that's Wenxian Zhang. Let's give him a hand. Next year, we can announce that right before the Academy of Management, our conference will be held in Vancouver, Canada, Simon Fraser University. And it will start with a doctoral consortium on August 4th, and it will run right into the beginning of the Academy of Management. I hope all of you, including DBA students from EM Lyon, can come and contribute and be part of our family. Thank you, goodbye, and enjoy the rest of your time in the US.